What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Take Three podcast. We're back again, obviously off-season edition. We shook off the wounds, we got the battle scars taken off of us. We saw the Juju Smith-Schuster trolling. We kind of got over that. The AJ Brown clapping back, the Eagles players clapping back, a Super Bowl parade, and we wiped that away. Congratulations once again to the Chiefs. They got the job done. They made the adjustments at half, and we didn't. But now we're on to the offseason, man. Now we're on to, hypotheticals, rumors. Almost every single day there's another rumor coming out. Where will this guy go? As you see on the screen, we got Derek Carr. He's taken visits. He got kicked out of Las Vegas. He's already visited with the Jets, the Saints, possibly going to Carolina for a visit. He has a lot of things lined up. We obviously got extensions. So, we're going to spend this episode, our first offseason episode, to really dive into this quarterback market. I think really it's a quarterback-driven league, obviously, and where some of these guys end up and how these guys extensions for a couple other the guys play out, I think will really shape the way the league goes in the next 5-10 years with some of these guys. First off, how are you doing? It's been a week. How are you feeling coming off Super Bowl, obviously, and then let's just straight get into it with Derek Carr. He'll be the first subject on the docket.
Yeah, feeling good. Getting over that damn Super Bowl loss. It's been a couple weeks. I kind of do what I do when my team loses. I kind of ignore the sports media for a week or two. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see footage of the parade. I don't want to see all the Chiefs talk. Once again, congrats to the Chiefs, phenomenal team. But I'm excited, jump into the off season, which means we're jumping into a new season. We get instead of being Super Bowl losers, we'll see how it comes out. But phenomenal year, incredible year. And it's going to be interesting. We kind of are getting our off season schedule rolling. We're going to do a lot of different things and kind of figure things out for the podcast. So it's going to be a really fun off season. And we're going to start with some QB talk, obviously.
Facts. I think off season's a good time to, as we've spoken about, just be consistent. We're looking to get into this off season. We fell away from that last off season. Let's spend this off season being consistent. Let's jump it off here. So ultimately, Derek Carr, he's been away from the Raiders for it feels like 3 months, 2 months. He got exiled, kicked off the team by I guess Josh McDaniels, I guess upper management, but he stepped away, didn't get to go out on his terms. I guess he did because he had the Pro Bowl, right? He was where I think he still had the Raiders helmet on at the Pro Bowl. He had a funny shot at the Raiders, but where do you ultimately think Derek Carr ends up when this thing shakes out? At one point, I thought I was like, damn, he sounds like a lock to go to the Saints, but then he sat down with the Jets, and I don't know, the Jets said that wild shit like that first ballot Hall of Fame comment, and I was like, dude, what? I was like, I guess you got to gas a guy up as much as you can when he's in the building, and then I don't know if he's going to sit down with Carolina, but Frank Reich's down there now, a quarterback guy, a lot of weapons, a pretty good defense down there in Carolina too. So how do you think it shakes out for Derek Carr this season or this offseason? And he's going to get a payday in some years, regardless of where it goes. It seems for Derek Carr.
Yeah, the Derek Carr situation is kind of interesting to me because he's clearly the best quarterback in the market, depending on what Green Bay does with Aaron. Obviously, that's a different part of the conversation. But so Derek's gonna have some offers, and you mentioned the big ones, like the Jets and the Saints make the most sense to me. I feel like Carolina is further away than they are close. I know they kind of got a little bit of a rhythm and technically had a chance at that terrible division last year at the end, but I'm really not. I feel like Carolina has more rebuilding to do than the other teams. I think the Saints are closer in that division. I think a Derek Carr to the Saints would be a better fit. Personally, I like the Saints defense much more, and I think they have good weapons as well still. But the Jets is the big one to me. The Jets legitimately have a case for a top 5 defense in the league, and they have some really nice young weapons. I think for the Jets, their top priority would be Aaron Rodgers, followed by Derek Carr. Those are the top 2. I think if you're the Jets, you got to get one of those guys. But then that kind of comes down to this question of what is Derek Carr actually worth? He's going to be 32 next month in March, at the end of March. You give him a 4-year deal that puts him through 36. Not everyone's Tom Brady. We kind of been mystified the last few years because Aaron's playing a little later and Tom Brady's been great, but that's so far from normal. As we saw, Russell Wilson has fallen off. He hasn't played great. Maybe he'll recover. That's a different topic, but a 4-year deal for Derek Carr. He wants at least 35 million, 30 plus. I'd be really comfortable with a 2-year deal of 30 to 35 million. 4-year, I don't know. To me, though, the top 2 teams are the New York Jets, New Orleans Saints, and they have some common characteristics of really good defenses and some nice weapons to work with. If I have a preference, I would do the Jets because I think once again to highlight that defense. I think they have a chance to be a top 5 defense, just extraordinary defense, and their weapons are like rookies and really young. And hopefully, Hall can come back at running back. So, like to me, I think the Jets are the number one priority, but I feel like for Derek Carr, he's going to go with whoever offers him the best contract and shows him the most love. He wants to know that like the franchise is 100% behind him and believe in the guy because I'm not sure if Derek Carr can lead you to a Super Bowl. I think if you have a really good defense and key pieces in place, there's a decent chance at it. But at the end of the day, Derek Carr is a good quarterback. Like he's a slightly above average quarterback. Sometimes he plays below that, but if you're staying in the AFC, you got to beat guys like Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow. So like that's just a tough task. You're going to need an excellent defense behind you. So that would bring me to the Jets. On the other end, if you go to the NFC, the quarterback race is not nearly as tight. Jalen's clearly the best quarterback in the NFC. And then after that, maybe Aaron. So, like the NFC, I think you have a better chance, even though I think the Jets would be a better roster for him.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. I just wonder, I mean, obviously the Saints cap situation isn't great. It's like what would they have to purge off of that roster? Obviously
Yeah.
they could find a way to get rid of Michael Thomas, but then it's like, I don't know, can Michael Thomas even play football anymore? Then it's like we don't know what happens with Alvin Kamara. Obviously he's going to get indicted or whatever happened with his legal situation. He's looking at probably not being there. He could, I mean, in a crazy world, become a cut depending on what happens with the legal situation, or maybe not even play a snap this year. So I imagine Derek Carr is sitting there and thinking about that. But yeah, I'm not a huge, I don't know. For me, Derek Carr is kind of like on icy weird territory for me. I mean, he went out and got his best friend, the guy he played with in college, Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in football last year. And Devontae Adams looked downright pissed at him last year, and just was he wasn't happy with him, right? He went out there for a reason, right, to make big plays with a buddy of his, and they just never seemed in sync. I mean, you look at Derek Carr last year, 6-9 overall record. Obviously, the O line's not great, the defense isn't great, but I mean. Just over 60% completion percentage, 24 touchdowns, 14 picks. I mean, it's not world-beating stats for a guy that everybody's kind of jumping head over heels. And I'll be the first guy to say it. I mean, the Jets could get him, and I still don't think it puts him in that AFC. Like, I mean, it doesn't. I just don't think they would be able to get over Pat Mahomes. I really don't think they'd be able to get over Josh Allen. And I'm not even a huge. I've kind of taken a step back on the Bills from last year or Joe Burrow, and I mean. With we haven't even mentioned the Chargers, right? With Justin Herbert and a legit play caller now and Kellen Moore. Like, I just don't think he moves the needle that much as people are jumping head over heels and really thinking, is he a clear cut upgrade? Yeah, I mean, they just had Zach Wilson and Mike White play quarterback in New York this year for the Jets, right? He's definitely an upgrade. The other team had Andy Dalton play and had Taysom Hill running gadget play, so he's clear cut upgrade. I mean, he's going to get 38 to 40 million dollars, which is crazy, somewhere in the 150 range for 4 years. I just don't know, right? It's absolutely batshit crazy. I wouldn't do it. I mean, I could propose one like I'm with you. If I could give him a 2-year deal, which is not going to happen, I probably would. And then I can look if I'm a team like the Jets, right? Say you whiff on Aaron Rodgers, say Green Bay's going to keep Aaron Rodgers. Could I pivot to a guy like Jimmy G, who's you probably only need to give him 2 years? It's a short-term quarterback, and then you still have that flexibility after the years. He probably, I mean, you have a good running back, you have the good West Coast scheme with, I believe LaFleur's over there calling plays now for the Jets who just signed on, and it's a scheme that Jimmy G knows, right? And you can operate that. Brees Hall gets back. You got Garrett Wilson out there. You got the weapons, but you'll still have the O line flexibility, and the defense will still be there, right? And I don't think you'd notice that much of a difference between having Jimmy G back there and having Derek Carr. Um, yeah, so I mean, I think he ends up with the Saints. I just think the Saints, they'll pull the trigger. I think the Jets are going to be too into Aaron Rodgers. I feel like the Jets are going to be willing to give up whatever it takes because Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh kind of know this is it. Like we got to hit on this guy, so let's give everything, right? When we kind of seen GMs and coaches that are going to be on the way out anyway if a move fails, they're willing to give everything. They're willing to give the picks up. You know why? Because they're not going to be around the next couple of years when the team doesn't have the picks. They're going to be gone. They're going to be fired if it goes to shit. So I think they'll be too in on Aaron Rodgers, and then Derek Carr will make his decision. I think he ends up with the Saints, as I said, somewhere around 40 million a year, somewhere in the 150 range for 4 years. And I just I wouldn't love it for if I was the team, right? Like I'm kind of glad my team has a quarterback and we're not kind of diving into this thing because it's just insane. I'm not high on Derek Carr. People really love Derek Carr. Good quarterback, not a great one. Not going to elevate any of these teams to a Super Bowl. Not even get him into the I don't. He won't even get you into the conference championship with all due respect.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. I think Derek Carr to the Saints are probably instantly the best NFC South team, considering Tom Brady barely won that division. That division's just really beat up. So I don't know if that's really saying that much. I would expect him to lead playoff spot, and once again I'd be really comfortable with Derek Carr for the first 2 years. The second 2 years make me real nervous. But the Jimmy G to the Jets idea, actually, I never really thought about that, to be honest. I actually like that a lot because
Yeah,
depending on the price. If you get Jimmy at a good price, you can just keep that roster that's damn good around him there, right? And Jimmy has shown you give him an elite defense and good weapons, he can get you there. We'll see if he can win it. That's yet to be seen, but like that's probably the Jets' best formula because I mean, you have to go through like three highly elite quarterbacks in the AFC at least. There might be four or five. It's like depends how you feel, but there's really no quarterback that's going to come in and outduel Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Joe Burrow. So the best way to do it is a phenomenal roster and not make mistakes. So like Jimmy G to the Jets does make a lot of sense to me.
exactly. And then looking at Jimmy G's last, what was it, last kind of full year play. I mean, he played this year. He was 7-3, right? 7-3, 67% completion, 16 touchdowns, 4 picks. Obviously, what people will combat and say, he had the scheme, he had Shanahan, he had the weapons. Okay, we go back, 2021, 9-6. He was 68%, 3,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks. I mean, it's right on. 20 touchdowns, 12 picks. The other guy threw 24 and 13. It's not that far off, right? The accuracy numbers, I mean, he's completing passes at 8% higher rate. So I mean, I don't think for a shorter term thing. But let's go to a thing where the Jets are down to two guys, right? They want to get Aaron Rodgers, they want to get Derek Carr. Both guys. I mean, where do you go if you can go all in, right? They'd have to go all in 4 years with Derek Carr, and you would kind of have him locked in, and you could potentially see by year two it goes to shit. Year three could probably be bad. Year four will most likely be very bad. Or you could go with Aaron Rodgers. They deal all the picks, trade for him. They still have the defense. They still have Garrett Wilson and those guys and the young dudes. And they can have Aaron Rodgers for 1 year and then know that he's going to do the darkness retreats, the smoke and crack, and like the quitting and not coming back and going on McAfee's podcast and all the offseason bullshit that comes with Aaron Rodgers. If you're GMing for the Jets, I mean, what situation do you like better? Um, yeah, I mean, I could say for me, I'd probably go Aaron Rodgers just because you're not locked into it forever, right? You can have him do his freak out and all that shit, and you're not tied to it, right? You can move to the next guy and kind of see what next offseason looks like. If you invest in Derek Carr, you're stuck there for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, right? It's not a good, not good setup.
Yeah, and that's the key here, right? So I think you have to go Aaron Rodgers simply because like 1 year for Rodgers, I think you just kind of go for it, right? Like I think the Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers is pretty damn close in quarterback play considering last year. But like Aaron had two MVP years right before that. So I think he's earned enough in his career where we can assume maybe now granted he should have been a little more focused and part of it's on him, but new receivers, kind of a different situation. It took a while, but here's the catch though. Is Aaron going to go into New York and do the same thing? Like take a while to really mesh with his receivers, not work with them much,
Yep.
criticize them for
Yep.
all that. Like if he's going into a new locker room and doing that, then maybe you should just take Derek Carr. But I don't. Here's the thing: do we think the New York Jets are going to win a Super Bowl with either of these guys at quarterback in the next year or two? I think the answer is no. Like Mahomes is still there, Burrow's still there. Allen. We'll see what happens with Herbert and Lamar. It's hard to see the Jets actually going to a conference championship, winning that and winning a Super Bowl, regardless of who's quarterback. So to me, I think you take a shot with Aaron Rodgers because you can get out of that situation much easier than you can get out of the Carr situation. And I think the reality for the Jets is neither of these guys is probably taking to a Super Bowl. I think it's somebody that's not on the roster yet is what they're really going to need. But like if you're that regime, I think you just kind of swing for Aaron Rodgers because at the end of the day, if anyone's gonna, you never know. Like what if he turns back the clock and is just fantastic when it matters most? It's certainly possible because he's Aaron Rodgers. Like that is what it would take at times to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs or Joe Burrow. So like I think you have a much better chance with Rodgers than you do Derek Carr, and you can get out of the situation much easier. But let's be honest, Rodgers, even though there's a higher ceiling, there's a much more it seems like there's a much higher rate for volatility as well.
Yep. I mean, yeah, he's not going to change his ways. He's not going to come in and work with the young dudes. He's not going to do any of that. Like, he's going to be the same old Aaron Rodgers. It's just probably on Sundays, if he gives his best, he's probably, well, not probably, he's definitely better than Derek Carr if he's at his best. And I think that's what you'd bank on if you're Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh. You'd say you flip a coin, which guy, although we're probably not making a Super Bowl, which guy gets us closer? And it's definitely number 12 in Green Bay that gives you a better shot to compete at the end of the day with that defense and those guys out there. And as you said, I mean, we both said it. It's shorter term. You can be done with it after a year and kind of move on and see what it looks like. The GM would be probably fired if it goes absolutely terrible and they somehow miss the playoffs. The coach and the GM would be gone, and then Aaron would be gone, and you move on. But yeah, I mean, it sets you up one way or another, right? Because the next regime would be stuck with Derek Carr, and maybe they don't want Derek Carr as their guy, right? And then you can move on, find a draft pick, do something. So I think Aaron Rodgers makes a lot more sense. Although people love Derek Carr. I don't know, ever since he kind of hit the market and got did dirty by the Raiders. That was kind of a dirty move by the Raiders, just kicking him out. But it was also very interesting that once he got kicked out, all of a sudden Jarrett Stidham and Josh McDaniels' offense, it didn't look as bad, right? It looked like a somewhat competent offense, and that's the weird part. I was like, if Jarrett Stidham can step in
Against the
and look.
Niners too.
Yeah, against a team that made the conference championship, against a team that had the number two, number one defense, the top three defense in the league, and Jarrett Stidham was having a field day slinging the rock, and Derek Carr. I mean, that offense was never really on point since day one when Devontae Adams and him kind of came together. So I don't know. I'm not a huge Derek Carr guy. Good quarterback, as I said, not a great one. I'd go with Aaron Rodgers and all his darkness retreats and stupid shit, even if it's only for a year. Plus, it'd just be funny to see Aaron Rodgers with the New York media. Like, I think that would be absolutely electric TV. Like, Aaron Rodgers in New York would just be great for television, right? Like, you can't beat it.
That was the last point I was going to bring up was the media aspect. I mean, and for Aaron career wise, like you can make a ton of money in that New York media, and the Jets will get so much damn attention with Aaron Rodgers there. It just makes a lot of sense for like a one off for the Jets. Like, why not? You did Brett Favre back in the day. This is a much better situation than Brett Favre. Like, why not?
Yeah. Dude, maybe the Vikings cut ties with Kirk and they call up and try to get Aaron Rodgers. That'd be hilarious if Aaron Rodgers goes the same career arc as the guy that refused to mentor him. But I don't know. Should be interesting. Free agency opens, but I think the 15th of March, like, dude, I mean, we're getting there, right? The rumors, I think the retreat ended a couple of days ago. It's weird. It said it was like a 4-day retreat, and the dude, like, it lasted a solid week and a half. I was like, this guy's really, he's really milking it. Aaron Rodgers became quite the character in like the past couple of years that you really didn't see, but you're really starting to see the true colors of
Uh-huh.
Aaron Rodgers in these past couple of years. Moving on to another quarterback in a very interesting spot is one Lamar Jackson. Obviously, sat out. He was hurt, obviously, but kind of, I don't know, people kind of speculated that, he hasn't got his long-term extension, hasn't got his money. Why is he going to show up, right? He's already banged up. Why would he show up and risk more injury? The relationship kind of seems on ice at this point. Like, I've heard that the Ravens could most likely trade him if they can't work something out, right? They do have the franchise tag, but it just seems, I don't know, will he show up on the franchise tag, right? What happens with Lamar? I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, if I'm Baltimore, I'm not even thinking twice. I'm saying, how do we get a long-term extension done, right? Like, he's the guy, right? He has all the tools. Let's go get him some receivers. Let's get him some legit guys out there outside of Mark Andrews. But I mean, what do you think happens with Lamar? Do you think they eventually divorce and move on this offseason? If they do, where do you think's a good landing spot for one Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, the Lamar Jackson situation's so interesting. I wish they would have just paid this man. Um, people that are against paying him would say things like he missed the last few games of both seasons, and yes, that's true. But like, let's be honest, what was Baltimore without him? I understand they played a close wild card game. It was a divisional game. They know that opponent really, really well. I'm not surprised that was close. It was Cincinnati, but outside of that, like you're not making the playoffs without Lamar Jackson. He sets you up to just be in that position. Granted, you need to see him perform better in clutch moments. They had 10-point leads in almost every single football game he played in this year, and that was against elite opponents as well. And he had some really bad endings down the stretch, and he gave it up. And I understand all that, but listen, he sells your tickets. He is your franchise. If you have number 8, you got Lamar Jackson. You're guaranteed a shot at the playoffs every single season and a shot. Like you might not be the elite team, you might never actually win an actual Super Bowl, but not many teams do. Like it's all relative, right? Patrick Mahomes is not going anywhere for a long time. It's going to be real tough to even get one. Lamar keeps you in that conversation no matter what. I don't think Baltimore is even a playoff team if they trade Lamar. Yes, they have a strong franchise and they run the ball well and it's a strong defense. I hear all that. I get all that. But like at the end of the day, you need Lamar Jackson out there. I think that's the thing. And if I'm Lamar, I wouldn't want to stay in Baltimore. I feel like they should have got it done already. Some of the rumors and things we hear out of Baltimore, I feel like they don't always aren't always the biggest fans of their own quarterback. Like I think Lamar should go somewhere else. I don't know where else makes the most sense. Like that's a hard question for me to answer. I've always wanted to see him in New England, which would never happen, I don't think, within the AFC. But I just love the idea of Bill Belichick getting Lamar Jackson. If anything, I think he would be traded to the NFC. I think they would send him out of conference and he would go across. But if I'm Baltimore, I'm doing everything I can to sign Lamar, but I don't think that's Baltimore's prerogative at this point. I think the deal would have been done. If anything, if they do keep Lamar, I think they're going to franchise tag him. And what makes me sad about that is Lamar Jackson seems like a really good human being that loves his teammates and loves football so much. I think he would, when it's finally time to play and like the season starting, I think Lamar would just straight up show up and play on the franchise tag, which kind of makes me sad because he deserves better than that. So I really hope Baltimore doesn't do him like that. But if they do hold on to Lamar because they're having a really hard time getting this deal done, I feel like they are going to franchise tag him, and I think Lamar would actually straight up play on that. And I just hope that doesn't happen. Lamar deserves all his money. I don't want to see something crazy happen. I personally want to see him on a different franchise next year. And I think we're leaning towards divorce more than the franchise tag situation. But where is a really good question. I'm really not sure where.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the Jets are always still lurking, right? If the Jets wanted to kind of swing and make a big splash and say, screw Derek Carr, screw Aaron Rodgers, let's go get Lamar, and do that. That's always an option. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't think they get a deal done. They don't. I don't even think there's any momentum towards a deal. I mean, I haven't heard anything. A lot of insiders think that a trade's eventually happening. If they don't get a deal done, I think they will swing the franchise on him. And then I don't know. I mean, we've only seen one guy really say fuck it and not show up when they get franchised, right? And that was Le'Veon Bell. And we kind of saw, I mean, sat out the year. He eventually got a deal with the Jets. I don't think Lamar would do that, but it's like I mean, what Lamar are you getting if you kind of did him like that? You didn't pay him, didn't get the deal done, and then franchise tagged him, and he kind of showed up. Is he going to be willing to take risks? Is he going to do all those things? I don't know. I mean, obviously, a guy's not going to show up and just mail it in and just throw interceptions and say screw it and cost your team games. But it's like I don't know if he's going to be fully invested into your team, right?
Right. And let's say he was signed before last year and he was given his guaranteed contract and got all his money and didn't have to worry about his future. Perhaps he goes out there for wild card weekend and lays it on the line for you. But why would he if you didn't give him his money? That was a smart decision. You got to focus on the long term. He's seen guys like Mike Vick and people in front of him giving him solid advice because we've seen it before. So I love that he didn't come back and didn't like just ignored the pressure and didn't play. I thought that was great. But Baltimore, he'd be way more willing to risk it for you if you gave him his money.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think if you're Lamar Jackson, you kind of sit back and you look at teams like Miami who went all out to go get Tyreek Hill and they got Jalen Waddle and they go out and get all these weapons and get the offensive head coach. Obviously, he still knows his thing, but they get a lot of support around Tua, and if you look at the Ravens and what they've done, they gave $100 million to a linebacker, an off-ball linebacker, in Roquan Smith. He's a good middle linebacker, right? But I mean, that doesn't help Lamar Jackson. I mean, at the end of the day, it does, but it doesn't at the same time, right? And then they go out, I think, a year or two ago and got Calais Campbell, and then he's sitting there and he's like, okay, you draft me who? Rashad Bateman, kind of been a bust. My best wide receiver right now is Devin Duvernay, and he's probably a better kick returner than he is an actual receiver receiver out there. So I mean, they've got him, Mark Andrews, and J.K. Dobbins, and J.K. Dobbins got hurt in the first year, and so that's the help they've got him. So I think if you're Lamar, it's like, can you trust the Ravens to really get pieces? And once you sign this long-term extension, are they going to be willing to kind of pull away from that defense? The Ravens have kind of been one of those franchises that have been known as a right, a defensive franchise. Them, the Steelers, the Bears have kind of been like that as well. Teams that kind of like to have stout defenses and play physical football. And yeah, they got to get weapons. I mean, I'll post an interesting trade candidate. I like, as I'm looking right now, the Falcons, right? If the Falcons are willing to give up the eighth pick and they're willing to give up, next year's pick and another pick, and you get Lamar Jackson, you get they had I believe Cordell Patterson. They also had Algier in the backfield who was pretty good. They have Kyle Pitts out there. They have Drake London out there. You pair him with those guys, right? The defense isn't very good. I mean, they have AJ Terrell, cornerback on the outside. Uh, but Lamar Jackson in Atlanta, I mean, you have, I don't know, could the Lions get crazy? They kind of saw how far they got this year, right, with Jared Goff, and say, hey, why don't we give up the Rams pick this year? Let's give up our pick as well, 6 and 18 a second, and let's give up, next year, since they're giving up 2 firsts this year, let's go insert Lamar into that offense that was already pretty good with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell. We can make that jump, right? I mean, the NFC North is, if Aaron moves on, even if Aaron stays, it's almost it's wide open, right? Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, they were like the worst 13 win team we've ever seen. So I mean, those get interesting. And then I mean, Houston could get real crazy if they said, we don't want Bryce Young. Let's swing the second pick this year. Let's swing the Cleveland Browns pick. But yeah, those are some options. But I definitely think Lamar and the Ravens, they're headed towards a divorce. Like maybe a franchise tag will happen, but I think they eventually move on in this offseason for a huge haul. And it'll be interesting to see where the Ravens go from here, because I mean, they're really kind of missing out with a franchise, a true franchise guy that can do it on both the running and the passing end at quarterback, true dual threat.
Yeah, and I've seen that Atlanta rumor before, and like that would be really interesting. I think it would take a year or two to be like a true contender because you got to build up that defense. But you give Lamar weapons. Lamar doesn't have weapons. Like, yeah, Mark Andrews is good, but like even when they had Hollywood Brown, like Lamar's never had legitimate weapons. And if I'm Lamar Jackson and I'm leaving Baltimore anyway, like get me to the NFC. Like I keep emphasizing how many damn great young quarterbacks are in the AFC, and the NFC list is short, dude. Jalen Hurts is clearly number one, and I mean, and is Dak number two? Like that's what It's just like a big drop off to all the young elite guys in the AFC. So if I'm Lamar and I am leaving Baltimore, whether it is Atlanta or somewhere else, like get me to the NFC.
Yep. And this is one I'll just throw out that I kind of brought up out of random. They did just get Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator and play caller. What if the Commanders kind of make a swing at this thing and say,
Ooh.
we'll go out and get Lamar. We already have Scary Terry. We have Curtis Samuel. We have Brian Robinson. We got some weapons, right? If we throw Lamar in there and we're backing Eric Bieniemy as a legit play caller and the guy who I honestly think once they force Ron Rivera out after this year, it's the last year of Rivera's contract. I think Eric Bieniemy will be the next head coach of the Commanders, whether it's by week 10 of this year or whether it's in 2024. What if they
I
jump in?
like
I
it.
would hate that, right? I would hate that to see Lamar twice a year with those kind of guys. But I mean, that instantly upgrades their quarterback position. I don't know. I mean, they can sit here and pump up. They're excited to run with Sam Howell, but I mean, I gotta think Eric Bieniemy's sitting at home in Maryland or DC or Virginia, wherever he's staying now, and saying, if I can go get Lamar Jackson and add him into my offense, I got a better shot to compete than I do with a guy like Sam Howell.
Yeah, Washington would instantly be interesting. That's a really good suggestion because, like, that defense, yeah, they fell off and they weren't as good as when they made the playoffs, but they still have a bunch of good key pieces. They could turn, I feel like they could turn that around, have a strong draft. You add Lamar. Oh, man. I think Washington would bump up. I mean, that division is incredibly tough, obviously, but like that's in the NFC. You get out of the AFC, like I'm saying, that's a fantastic scenario, I think, for Lamar.
Yeah, if it does go down, I'm interested to see just what the haul looks like, and will it be picks? Will they have to give up players, right? Because I mean, obviously that's one thing that Derek Carr did, right? He said, "Screw the Raiders, I'm not accepting a trade," because I mean, it's truly smart by him because he said, whatever team I'm going to
Yep.
choose to go to, they're not going to have to give up anything and take away from their roster to add me to the team. So I'm going to be with their, the full pieces. So I mean, obviously anybody with Lamar, they're going to have to give up picks. Will they have to give up players? We'll have to sit back. I mean, it's due to be a massive haul. Like if the trade happens, like you're looking looking at probably 3 firsts for sure. Like it's going to be crazy. It's going to be some internet breaking, some Twitter breaking stuff. One more quarterback. I didn't make a slide for it, but what do you think the Giants do with Daniel Jones? I've heard he wants $45 million. Like, I don't know. I would be sick if I had to give that dude 40. Be sick if I had to give that dude 35. 35 seems like, I mean, with this quarterback market, like, that's probably right on par. That's where I feel comfortable, but he can push the needle, right? Like, he truly can. So what do you think the Giants do with Daniel Jones this offseason?
Yeah, Daniel Jones earned himself some leverage, made the playoffs, got a playoff win. Um, as an Eagles fan, I love it because like I still don't believe in Daniel Jones. He's clearly a starter. Like, well, Brian Dable did such a good job with that offense. I just and like he limited Daniel Jones. I still don't really believe in Daniel Jones that much. Like, I think he's a guy. I think we saw closer to his ceiling this year. You know, a second round playoff team, got a playoff win, got him in, but like I don't think that team won all those games because of Daniel Jones. And then obviously he has leverage. He's going to try and get his money as he should. But between him and Saquon, I don't know. I'm not real sold. I don't want to give him 40 million. I think that's incredibly asinine. Like if you do that, like goodbye roster construction. You cannot put a good enough roster around him. He's not going to elevate guys like you need him to if you're going to pay him that much. Um, if I'm the Giants, I think if they're smart, do not be afraid to just move off Daniel Jones if the number is not right. Like you do not hesitate on it. Go and try and get someone else. We keep talking about the New York Jets wanting teams, but all of a sudden, if the New York Giants were to say, "Hey, we're going to get a different quarterback. We were a playoff team. We have all these weapons as well. We're in a good situation." Brian Dable's a great head coach now. He's leading our franchise. Like, there's a ton of excitement for the New York Giants, and obviously they're high on Daniel Jones. They want to bring him back, but like, I think the number is so key here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants just straight up sign him to a big contract and handcuff themselves. But I just think it'd be an incredibly stupid decision. If you do ride with Daniel Jones and say he's earned it for a couple more seasons, that's fine. I can get behind that because of what he did last year. But it's got to be for the right number because you can't expect him to elevate guys on your roster. I don't think he's good enough. I don't think that's realistic. It's got to be a good number to where you can keep a really strong roster around him still.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this so many times. The Giants, Brian Dable has no faith in Daniel Jones winning him any big games. He ran him
I don't think
17.
so.
He ran him 17 times against the Minnesota Vikings, which was 17 times that he took the ball off of his arm and said, "Please don't throw it. Do anything else besides throw it." The guy had 3,200 yards. He had 15 touchdowns, 5 picks. He ran the ball 120 times for 700 yards. Anytime a white QB is running that much, I know they don't have any faith in him, to be honest. And I don't even think it's a difficult decision for the Giants in the offseason. Just press the franchise tag button. When I hear 45 million, I laugh. I'm like, I can bring this guy back. Franchise tag's 32 million and call it a day. I'm not even going to get into debating with Daniel Jones or discussing contract numbers with Daniel Jones. I would close the phone lines at 40 million and say, okay, we'll bring you back on the tag, like, and then we can reevaluate the quarterback market. Looks like next year, right? Show us another year. I feel bad. I mean, Brian Dable, coach of the year, he kind of got like the raw end of this, right? He joins up, doesn't get to use up the rookie years like many of these other coaches, right? Doesn't get to use the cheap years. He gets 1 year, and then it's immediately let's pay this average quarterback, and we're gonna have to pay him upwards of 30 million. If we get real stupid, 40 million, 45 million. But I think the Giants, Brian Dable and those guys, they're smart enough. They'll press the franchise tag button, 32 million for Daniel Jones. Call it a day. See you next year. And then we'll see what they do with Saquon Barkley after that. But I don't think in any way this new regime, if it was the old like Gettleman regime, they might be dumb enough to do that. But I don't
They
think,
would.
yeah, I don't think with these guys and Brian Dable, they're going to do that. Franchise tag, if I had to guess, and they'll move on. They'll see what Daniel Jones has in 2023, right? Can he replicate it? Can he take that next step in the Brian Dable scheme? And that's really where, I mean, he could get crazy. He goes off next year, then he could call up and say, "I want 50," right? Like we're in a we're in a
Yeah.
world where Daniel Jones could really start leveraging himself into some bigger paydays. But I don't think he quite did it this time. And yeah, he'll get the tag. Call it a day
I think
for
the
the
tag
Giants.
is the smartest move for the franchise because it gives them another year to evaluate. It's just, you make a good point. Gettleman would have done all the dumb things because that's what he did. But I just, it's unfortunate the Giants have Brian Dable as an Eagles fan because he's just so damn good. I think they'll make the right decision. They'll be smart with it.
Exactly. Danny Dimes even switched agents too. He said, "We're going to get some new agents. We're going to get some guys that are going for record numbers." And yeah, I mean, if I'm the Giants, I'm laughing at that. I'm saying, here's your record number. We don't even have to do anything. Let's fax over the tag to the league office and call it a day. And not even the special tag either. Just give them the regular tag and say, if one of these idiot franchises wants to go out and give you a shit ton of money, we'll just take the compensation, the picks that we get if you go somewhere else and don't sign it, right? So I mean, they're not going to do any. They don't need to do anything fancy. Daniel Jones isn't going anywhere. He'll be back there for his $30 million payday, and we'll see what he can do in 2023. Let's move it on to quarterbacks that are due for paydays, right? Obviously, we kind of we already covered Lamar, right? If Lamar gets franchised, but I mean, we could dive into if he gets moved, right? Because if he gets moved, it's going to come with a massive payday. Joe Burrow's sitting back; he's looking for a massive payday. Justin Herbert's there, and then obviously Jalen Hurts. One of these guys is kind of not like the others. Jalen Hurts, he's a second round pick. We don't have the luxury of having the fifth year option, right? So I mean, we have to get a deal done this offseason, right? Because I mean, he's not going to show up. I mean, he will show up because he's that type of dude, but I mean you don't want to get into that situation where it's he's getting paid $1 million last year and you know you have no leverage because he can hit free agency the very next year, right? So it gets dicey. So which one of these guys do you think is the first guy to sign this offseason? How big do you think the amounts are looking, right? Obviously, we saw Deshaun Watson's. I don't have his figure up, but I mean, I've heard Jalen Hurts extension. The baseline is the Josh Allen deal, which is 6 years, 258 million. So I mean, that's kind of the range where these dudes will start at. Which guy do you think gets a deal done first this offseason? What do you think it looks like?
Man, that's so hard to tell. And I think the big factor now, which we're seeing new, is like the guaranteed money in the NFL. That's what's holding Lamar Jackson back. We saw freaking Deshaun Watson get a ton of guaranteed money. Um, so I think I'm gonna go with Jalen to get signed first, simply because we don't have the luxury and like he has to be signed this offseason. I think he's going to. How he's gonna get it done. We see AJ Brown going on podcasts, putting pressure on Howie and the Eagles. I do think Jalen Hurts gets it done. I do think probably a 5-6 year deal, at least 250 million. I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer to 300 million, but it's hard for me to gauge because I think Jalen is also one of those guys where he would sign a slightly more friendly, team friendly deal as well. But it's just it's hard to tell. To me, it's all about the guaranteed money. Like I think we're talking probably 140 guaranteed money.
I mean, if you're getting this crazy, I mean, Lamar Jackson said he wants a fully guaranteed. I mean, we just watched Deshaun Watson get 230 million, a fully guaranteed 5 year deal from the Browns. I mean, you could see some of these guys say, if that dude got that, and especially Lamar Jackson when he angles for that and say, you know, that guy didn't win an MVP, all right? He was out of football for a year. He has all these allegations, and that guy got 230 million flat, straight, everything, every dollar is guaranteed. And then you look at Jalen Hurts, although I don't think he's one of those dudes, as you said, but he could say the same thing, right? If he doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
hurt, he probably wins the MVP. He was second in the MVP voting with the injury still. So, I mean, that's kind of the baseline. I mean, you kind of look at Patrick Mahomes did it the way he did it, 450 for 10. I don't think anybody ever eclipses I mean, somebody could one day eclipse the dollar amount, but kind of the way he did it, that's kind of the structure. He kind of gave these guys the blueprint, right? He only took 141 million guaranteed and kind of spread that deal out, which allowed them to still keep pieces on the roster, right? So that's a fascinating thing when these guys sit down to get these deals done and talk about it is, yeah, how big do you want your chunk to be? Because you know the second you take the fattest chunk, the other guys around you are going to start to disappear.
Yeah, and it's just interesting because like who's gonna be the most team friendly? Joe Burrow was noted for this season saying like my Super Bowl window is my full career, but like the reality for Joe is like this might be the best teams he has his full career, like with so many great pieces around him, and it's really hard to draft. The NFL is extremely hard, so you got to really take advantage of these windows. And like who's gonna be the most team friendly? I do think it would be Jalen, but I expect all these guys to get extensions, and all of them, with the exception of Lamar, is going to be on the team that they are with right now. Like they're just such exciting young talents. They're the future. I expect them all to have over 100, probably at least 120 million guaranteed, to be honest. And then Lamar, it just all depends on where he goes, as we've talked about that extensively already. But I expect all the other three guys. I expect them all to get extensions, and I think they're all going to get at least 100 to 120 million guaranteed.
Yeah, I think Lamar's next deal will be fully guaranteed. I'll go out and say that. I think whoever trades for him will be desperate enough that they're gonna give everything away. They're gonna give him the keys. So I think he will get a very similar deal. Probably it'll definitely be a little bit higher, but it'll be like a Deshaun Watson-esque deal, one of those six year fully guaranteed. Probably Watson got 230, so Lamar will probably get what 250, 260, and I think you'll kind of see the pieces go away from whatever roster he goes to because he's going to take that fat chunk. But I mean, I like Jalen kind of getting it done first just because Howie's not going to play around and he kind of knows that this sets up how he has to work this off season, right? In general. So I think sitting down and getting and hammering out Jalen Hurts deal. But I think he will take the smartest one, and I truly hope. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and this could blow up in my face, and he takes the fattest guarantee, and he takes the fattest amount, and we see guys lead the team. But I just don't think it's. I think he'll be smart enough to spread it out, maybe get a couple more years tacked on, maybe 7 or 8 years, and kind of tack on some dollars, but spread it out similar to Mahomes, to where he kind of sees this vision for the team of still having a roster around him after getting the deal done. Um, yeah. Do you
Uh,
think who do you think gets hired? Who do you think gets the biggest total contract when it's like said and done? Like when it comes out, you think Herbert does it? You think Burrow does it? You think Jalen gets the highest dollar amount?
I honestly think it's the one with the least amount of success out of all these guys, being Justin Herbert. Being in LA, I just see Justin Herbert getting the biggest contract, even though he's had the least amount of success. I just feel it because I feel like I don't have faith in Cincinnati's ownership. I know they put together this team, but they have a long history of being bad ownership. I mean, yes, and I could yes they'll pay Joe, but I could see him being kind of cheap with it. And I expect Jalen to take, like we said, I think Jalen is willing to take a more team friendly deal. Maybe he's not. And then Justin Herbert, being a young stud, the media loves him. He tends to get a pass on everything for a lot of shit. They just absolutely love him. He's in LA. I'm going Justin Herbert, the least accomplished quarterback out of the group.
Facts for sure. Yeah. And I guess kind of yeah, I mean the baseline I guess for a lot of these guys at least guarantees wise is I mean you looked at Kyler Murray, he got 190 guaranteed, right? So I mean a lot of these guys they could be eyeing up he
Yeah,
got 5 years,
insane.
230 with 180, yeah, 189.5 guaranteed. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Herbert gets the biggest one out of them all. I don't even know if he's like sold on LA, so I think he'll be willing to kind of pull their leg just enough, right? Like they've kind of stuck with Brandon Staley. I don't know how much he loves Brandon Staley, kind of all the bullshit that he's went through, not really getting a good play caller back there with him. That I think he'll milk them for every dollar that they're worth, just to kind of line his thing up. And as you said, I don't even know if he really likes LA, right? It's kind of just he'll roll with that as well. I just think Burrow and Hurts, they're smart dudes. Like they're both going to get paydays, but I think they're very wise guys, and they both kind of see the bigger picture of what they want to compete for. And I mean, obviously, all these dudes in the frame want to compete for championships, but there's kind of that other gear where I see Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts and Joe Burrow at least like mentally, that would be willing to kind of make a little bit of a sacrifice and take a little bit less. But as I said, my big prediction is Lamar Jackson gets traded, gets a fully guaranteed contract that surpasses I was about to say Daniel Jones for a second, surpasses Deshaun Watson's deal for sure. Just because I mean he's already telling the Ravens he wants a fully guaranteed, so I think that'll be his move for the offseason. Will it pay off? Who knows?
I forgot how much guaranteed money Kyler got. With hearing that again, I definitely feel like all four of these guys are getting at least 140 million guaranteed over the lifetime of their next contract.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would for sure. Yeah, easily. I'm just, yeah, it's fascinating to think these dudes are big paydays coming, and it'll really, yeah, it'll kind of uh what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of shift the way each franchise is able to operate too, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's a luxury for all these teams to operate with quarterbacks on rookie contracts, especially us operate with a quarterback that was on a second round picks rookie contract, which is a 4 year, $6 million deal, and we got a dude that that
Crazy.
competed at an MVP level, and as I said, the evaluation on Spotrac right now is at least 44 million a year is kind of the baseline.
Sounds
So
kind of right.
yeah, so every dude's looking big. We both went Herbert gets the big payday. We both said who Jalen gets the deal done first, just because I think Howie has it, and then I made my bold prediction with Lamar getting a fully guaranteed contract out of wherever he goes. Kind of any closing thoughts? That's really all I kind of had. I really wanted to focus in on the quarterbacks as a whole for this first episode. I kind of want to keep these like focus specific. That way, it's just more organized, and it's kind of this shapes the offseason where a couple of these guys go and how these extensions shake out will kind of shape everything that kind of molds into this offseason. It's such a quarterback driven league that you kind of have to cover the quarterbacks right off the top when you enter the offseason.
Yeah, fun and excited to head into the off season because we get to really dive into topics. It's kind of hard during the season at times because we can't like. There's times where you're limited. You can't really dive in on certain topics in just one team because you got to cover what's going on in the whole league. So the off season is going to be fun. We're going to be weekly pod, and we're going to get to dive into really specific things. And who knows, we might get creative and do some hypotheticals and just have some fun. So we're going to experiment a little bit and just have a fun off season and figure out what really works for us.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah, that's the whole point of the offseason. Play the rumor mill, have fun with this thing, and really, just really stay on a consistent path. But I mean, that's going to do it for the first episode this offseason, the first episode of the 2023 offseason. Please like, subscribe, and comment. If you have any ideas, if you want to hear things discussed, if you want to hear topics, please shoot it in the comments. DM us on Twitter, add us on Twitter. If you want to hear a topic and listen to two idiots break it down one week, just give it to us, man. We're pretty much down to talk any football NFL topic, I would say. I mean, at least I am. I would assume we're
Mm-hmm.
both on the same boat, but we would love to hear it. Any suggestion, any feedback for sure. Spotify link will be in the description as always. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all next week as we dive into the next offseason topic.